Hi there, it's Michelle from CNC Designs. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in New Zealand, and I'm bringing you the Global Monthly Video Hop, and this month's theme is Ladies First. So I've decided to do a stamp set using the Strong and Beautiful stamp because it has lots of lovely sayings referring to women. And if you'd like to see some of the other projects made for the Ladies First theme, have a look in the description below this video, and I'll have links to the other participants for the video hop. We are independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrators from around the world, and we come together once a month to do a video hop on a different theme. So you can click on the links below in the description to go have a look at everybody else's projects. Now, this project I'm going to show you has got some new upcoming products for the catalog that starts on May 4th. And it also has quite a few things that are retiring. So if you like some of the items here, again, look in the description. I will have the items listed, and quite a few of them will be retiring. So if you like them, you probably want to purchase them as soon as possible. So what I'm going to show today is this lovely little card. It's a square fun fold card. And so it says, "To the woman who does it all with grace and wisdom," and a beautiful butterfly. This is cut out of designer series paper, and then when you simply pull it open, the butterfly stays there, and then it says, "You have truly been a shining example to me," and then you can write your message on the inside. So it's a different size, and it's a fun fold. Now, when I originally designed this card, it's using the new Butterfly Brilliance stamp set, which is a large stamp set. It has all 6 butterflies on one stamp, and you can get with it bundled dies. So there's matching dies to cut out the detail if you'd like. There's some smaller butterfly dies here. There's some interesting shapes that give you bricks and other things. But what's really nice about this die set is it has one large die that cuts all the butterflies in one go. So you stamp all 6 butterflies, and then you can cut them all out in one go. And when this first came out a couple months ago, there was a pack of designer series paper that you could get as well. And the die, the large die, fit on one sheet of the designer series paper. This is 6 by 6 inch paper. So you could cut out 6 of the butterflies in one go out of the paper, which is how I got this butterfly here. So you can see it is designer series paper. It's got some color on the background. It's that butterfly there, and that's the back side. Unfortunately, this paper was so popular it's already sold out, so you cannot get this paper any longer. So I'm going to show you how to make this card, but with a little bit of a change up, so you can make it with the stamp set. And this background designer series paper there is from the Sand and Sea designer series paper, which is 12 by 12 inch paper, and that's part of the page I did. So it's the back side of the one that has the sea urchins, I believe those are. So I think it's supposed to be water, but in this case it looks more like sky. So I'm going to show you the blending brushes technique to get a similar background. Hopefully it all works. Cross the fingers. So when you design a project, or if you see something you like online and you don't have all the items to make it, you can improvise. You can find other things to give a go. So that's what I'm going to show you today. The other thing we're going to use is the Everyday Label Punch. This is a retiring item, so if you're interested in that, you'll need to get it soon, as well as the Strong and Beautiful stamp set won't be in the upcoming catalog on May 4th. So that will be going. And on the inside of the card, the lovely curved images there, that was done with the curvy dies. That set of dies does have matching stamps that give you flowers and birds and such. We're going to use this die here, but there's some other curvy dies, and I've done some other videos showing how to use some of those. This will be retiring as well. So if you like that, you're going to want to get your hands on that sooner rather than later. So let's get started and I'll show you how to make it. So first of all, because I'm not going to use the designer series paper for the butterfly, I need to stamp the butterfly and then I'm going to color it with my blends. So as I said, it's a very large stamp. So there it is, one big stamp. And the best way to do large stamps to get the best image from them is to use your Stamparatus. So that's what I've got here. And because I'm going to color them with blends, I'm going to ink it up with the Memento black ink, Tuxedo black ink, because that's water-based and the blends are alcohol-based. So you have to use the opposite when you're coloring things. If I was going to color this with watercolor, I would need to stamp the image in StazOn, which is a permanent alcohol-based ink, and then the watercolor would not make the ink smear. So that's why I'm choosing this. When you use your Stamparatus, you should always have something on the side so when you ink it up, it's nice and flat. Because if I didn't have that stamp case there, it bends it and puts a lot of pressure on there when you're trying to ink it up. So it's best to have something behind it, and it turns out that our stamp sets fit perfectly. Now, I only actually want the this butterfly here, but because I don't want to waste paper, I'm going to go ahead and ink them all up, stamp them, and then die cut them and use them for another project. And as you can see, the die will cut all of them in one go. Now, if I only wanted one butterfly, I could ink up that one, have paper just to cover that one, and run it through just cutting the single one out. Some people have actually cut their stamp sets and their dies apart to make them individual, but I'm okay with keeping it all together. So I'm going to do that, and I'll show you how to do it. I just need to get my white paper. Okay, so I've got a piece, it's about 12 centimeters wide and then the full 21 centimeters long. I just cut a section of thick whisper white. Now, you may notice I've got this interesting like edging here. I've just cut that out of some scrap card. You do get a bit of cardboard on the backing of in some of your packs with the designer series paper. So I just cut it, I think that's about an inch wide or about 5 centimeters wide. And I just cut kind of a little L. There you go, there's an L. Just to put in the edge. And the reason I'm doing that, and I have my magnets holding it in place, is when you stamp, you can't always get nice strong pressure just around the edges because of where the angle of the hinge is. So that way I can put my paper in place so I can get a better image press. I can press for a better image, not close to the edge. And that also for something like this where there's no room for me to put a magnet on the cardstock because of the large image, I can just make sure I hold it in place, push it into the corner, and if it doesn't give a good image, then I can just make sure I redo it by making sure it's pressed into the corner. So that's just a tip, something that you can make for your Stamparatus. If you don't already have a Stamparatus, I highly recommend you get one. They are fabulous, not just for making duplicate projects because you can put the stamp on there and just quickly make lots of them, but also for large images that are on the red rubber because you can't always see if you've got a good image pressed on, and this way if you've missed a few spots you can re-ink them and press them again. If you have the photopolymer you can usually see where you've missed. So I'll ink that up, sorry about the wobbling. Ink that up best I can. Now what I find, instead of just pressing, is I just rub up and down and all around with my fingertips. You could do it with your palms, but you don't really want to put too much pressure on it. But when you're using one of the black inks, a bit more pressure than using one of the juicy foam pads. Okay, and now I'll just pull it back and we'll see what we got. Okay, so I've missed that whole area, but you can see the ink is still on there, and here the ink is actually still on the stamp, so it's probably just a matter of me having to press where the ink was still on the stamp. Let's see if that's worked. Otherwise, sometimes you see that you've missed the ink. See there. So I did ink it up enough, I just hadn't pressed where the ink was. Now if I want this to be darker, I could carry on and do a bit more, and I think I will. So that's the other nice thing with the Stamparatus. If you decide you want it to be a darker image, you can add more. And so especially if your ink pads are getting a bit dry, sometimes you ink things up and it doesn't come out quite right, so you can go again. Now, as long as this is still in the corner, as I had it before, I should be able just to put the image straight over the previous image and make it darker. So just rubbing it. This is really good for those that might have difficulty gripping large blocks, or children, those with arthritis. Now, as you can see, this is a very large stamp, so you'd either need a very large block or Stamparatus. If you don't have a Stamparatus, now I can see I did the same thing. I still have some ink on those edges there. Just come back over and press. If you don't have a Stamparatus or a really large block, the other thing you can do is ink up your image on a non-slip surface. So we could even take this and stick it on my glass table here, ink it up, and then you would take your paper, put your paper down on top of the inked image, and then rub it. But you got to be very careful that the paper doesn't move when you're doing that. Some people do that and maybe use a rolling pin to go back and forth if you don't have a large enough block for this kind of an image. But so I quite like the look of that. And now I'll put my Stamparatus aside for now, and then show you the rest. So the other tip I have for you is when you're doing images like this that you're going to die cut out. So I didn't bother cutting it to exact size. I'm just going to die cut it, and I'll have that spare white for another project. Color it first. So if I were to go and die cut this and then try to color it, I'd have difficulty because I wouldn't have any edges to hold while I'm trying to color it. So the best thing to do is color the image first before you die cut it. Okay? And I will do that off screen so you don't sit around watching me color. But in the meantime, for the card, I'm going to use the Just Jade background, which was what I had for my original card. And this is just half a sheet of cardstock. So here in New Zealand, we use A4 sheets. So I cut it at 10.5 centimeters. So you can see that's the original A4. Try to see. That's the A4 piece there. So I cut it at 10.5. I've got another piece I can make a second card. And then I scored it at 10.5. So that gives me a 10.5 centimeter square. So whatever size cardstock you have, if you're in a country that uses imperial, cut lengthwise down half your cardstock and then score it the same width as you've got that side. So you get a square. Then go over again 10.5 centimeters. So this was scored at 10.5 centimeters and then 21 centimeters. And then you have an odd piece at the end, which is perfect because then we're going to fold it over. And that's our little square card. So we've got the front is 10.5 centimeters square. And then this is going to be the folded over piece. And then the two pieces for the inside. So because I'm not using designer series paper on this project, I've cut two pieces of basic white thin cardstock, and I've made them half a centimeter smaller. So they're identical sizes. That's 10 centimeters square to fit on the inside, where I'm going to have a sentiment, and 10 centimeters square to fit on the outside for the sentiment. Okay. And the other thing is, As I said, this I'm not using designer series paper, so I'm going to do with the blends. So I'm just going to move that out of the way for a moment so I don't make too much of a mess. So I am going to use the blending brush rather. I'm going to use the blending brush, and I'm going to use Misty Moonlight because that will give me a similar look to the sky, hopefully if I do it correctly. So the blending brushes, you can see this one looks like it's already dirty, etc. But that's just stained. So when you're finished with them, just simply rinse them out. Sometimes all the ink comes out, sometimes it stains. And what I've done is I've put a color of nail polish. You could even use one of your stamping blends to color on the back of it because it's alcohol based, it'll permanently stay. So this brush I'm always going to use for blue, not necessarily the blue I'm using today, but I'm always going to use it for blue, and then I'm going to keep it. My other brushes I've got for different colors. So I bought 2 sets. These come in a set of 3, so I bought 2 sets, so I have 6. So I've got 5 distinct colors, and then I have a spare one for whatever I want to use. So as long as you've rinsed it out, that is not going to come off. It is permanently stained in there, and it's not going to affect your cardstock. So when you're using the blending brushes, if you haven't used them before, what I find the easiest is I just hold it like that in my hand, and then I hold my fingers either side. When I first started using it, I was pushing and putting too much pressure. If you hold either side, then you can use those fingers to put more or less pressure to give you a certain image. Now this I just want to have blue in the background, but I don't want it really a strong blue. I want it to, kind of mimic clouds and sky. And similar to using our brushes before, tapping off is a good idea, and coming on from the edge is also good because that way you don't get too dark of an image right in the center. And so when you first go on, sometimes it doesn't look like there's a lot, so it's a good idea to pick it up every once in a while and have a closer look, and then you can see. And so it looks quite dark there, but depending on how hard I push, so I'm making sure I'm just coming on gently, and if I wanted to push hard, I could give it a bit of more pressure in the center. So see there, I'm just kind of swooping around, kind of giving it like look of clouds, or you can just go circular. Depends on how you want it to look. So I do want to have some sort of cloud-like look in there. So I want a light blue background, but I want some areas to look like there might be some clouds in the distance. So just pushing a bit more pressure. And you might not think there's a lot of ink left, but if you just give it a bit of pressure, you'll find that there is quite a bit. And then once you're done with that, once you're happy with it, so I think that, not sure if you can quite see that. Looks like there's a few clouds, etc. in there. Once you're happy with the look, then you can just leave this to dry, and it should be fine. Or you can rinse it out, and most of the ink will come off, and then you'll just be with a bit of staining. Or sometimes people, if you're using different colors of blue, just wipe it onto your Simply Chamois, just to wipe off some of the excess. But as you can see, unless I push really hard, there's not a lot coming off now. So I could change colors of blue. But when you use sponging techniques, and you are going to use the same sponge for other colors in the same shades, start with your lightest. So if I was doing this in multiple colors, I would have started with my lightest blue, and then I moved up to my dark one. So I think you can kind of see that there. It looks kind of like clouds, which is the effect I want. It's not quite as dramatic as that one, but I think it will serve the purpose. Okay, so that's that with the blending brush. So now I will show you. So here I'm going to decide where I want to have the words. I've decided to change up the words. So I'm going to use some other words from the same set, the Strong and Beautiful set, because there's so many lovely words in there. There's even a Happy Mother's Day. So lots of words in here for women, which is why I'm using this set, because the theme is Ladies First. And I'm going to do the God Made You My Mother, Love Made You My Friend. Now, I need to stamp in the bottom left-hand corner because the butterfly is going to be in the top corner. And the reason the butterfly is there is because of the punch. You can only go so far back. It's only so deep. So I can't punch any further. I could punch at a different angle from top or bottom, but to get the butterfly there, I'll have to have the words in that corner. So I'm going to stamp the words in just jade, which will match the background cardstock. And I always, when I do red rubber, I always turn it over to check, and I just put it at an angle to get to see if it's all wet. And then I'm just going to put it in the bottom corner so that when I have the butterfly in place, it's not going to affect it. So hopefully that comes out good. There you go. So if you imagine there's a butterfly up top. So that came out really nice. I like that. And then while I have my ink out, I'm going to do the bottom corner of the inside. And that one I've decided to choose You're Amazing and That's a Fact. Again, from the same stamp set. So basically, front's going to say, God made you my mother, love made you my friend, and the inside will say, You're amazing and that's a fact. Lots of interesting sayings on the set. So it's a really good one to have. And see, I always turn it over and just check. The other thing too is make sure that you stamp first before you stick things down, because there's always two sides to every piece of cardstock. And if you don't like the way it came out or it comes out crooked, you can do the other side. Little behind the scenes. This one here, I stamped this multiple times because the way it was printed was slightly crooked. So even though I thought I was stamping straight, it came out crooked. So that's also where the grid lines on your paper is handy. You can always use those to line up. So for that, I suggest you practice on the grid lines first to check to see if it's coming out straight. And then you can put your cardstock in place and then stamp where you want it to go. But this time I just winged it and it worked. Normally I stamp things crookedly. So that's for the inside of the card. Now the next part is making the card. Oh, I got some ink on there. Huh. So that'll be for the inside. So we need to determine where to put the curve. So I'm going to use this fancy curve from the curvy dies. Now the curve is actually on this side. See that metal part there? That's what's going to cut the curve, and this will decorate the part that's left behind. So when you cut it, you have to make sure you're cutting it the correct way. So if I were to cut it this way, the fancy part would be on the piece that falls off, and this would just have a curve. But if I cut it this way, where that's the curve, sharp curve, the curve will be here, and on the what'll be left inside will be the fancy section. So the best way to do this when you run it through your Big Shot or your die cutting embossing machine is put your curve down the correct way. So that's going to cut the curve there and leave the nice fancy part inside. And do it at the angle you're thinking of. And then the piece that's going to be inside, just set it on top, because then you can feel where the edge of the die is. So right now I can see the edge of the die might actually cover up the words there. So see, I'm putting a bit of a border around because that's how it's going to sit on the inside. And I want the curve to come to a point where I'm going to have the curve coming and just kind of letting those words peek out. So just holding it in place, I can feel the metal is there, and then that will be a good placement for that piece to be die cut. So I'll go die cut that, and I'll come back and show you. Okay, so now I've cut that out, and there it's going to sit on the inside, and the words will have enough room. So you could have made it go over more, or just your preference, as long as you had space to show the words peeking through. So that was the scrap piece that came off, which gives me that curve there. And as you can see, that one I've got further over than this card because this had larger, words were longer, so I had to have it come over more to the right. But that one I've got more space, so the background's covered more. But you have just a little peek through of the white. If you want, you could put a different piece of cardstock behind here and have a different color peeking through, but I quite like the white peeking through. So now, let's put the front together. So I can go ahead and glue that on the inside, and then we'll put the front together. The white one. So just use whatever your favorite adhesive, double-sided tape, tear and tape, snail. I just use liquid glue for videos because it's quick and easy. And then that will give us a little bit of an edge around there. There we go. So that's the inside done. And now the outside. So for the outside, the best thing to do is do the punching first. And to get my butterfly to look like it's sort of flying away, fluttering away, I did it at an angle. Now what you should do is you should also measure your butterfly up to the area that you're going to cut to make sure that you've got it far enough in. And I'll get the butterfly and do that. So I just thought I might show you a bit of the coloring technique. So this is the butterfly that we need, and I'm going to do it similar colors. So what I suggest is you lay down the light colors first and then go with the dark ones. With blends, if you haven't used them before, they do bleed, so you don't want them too close to the edge. And this has a little shadowing with where the black is. So I'm using the light Just Jade pen. It's going near the edges, but not too close. And just giving it a full coverage of ink at the bottom of the base on all the sides. And just around. And the nice thing with blends, you don't see the pen lines like you do with normal coloring pens and with pencils. That's what I like because it makes everybody look like they're an artist. So I'm just going to sort of make similar color butterfly. I'm not really good with color choices, so I tend to go with what I know looks good. So now that I've got the background done, then I'm just going to come in, and these pens, if you haven't used them before, where they have a brush tip and a bullet tip. So I'm just going to come in with a bit of right where the shadow is. I'm just going to come in with a bit of, just go over the shadows with some of the dark Just Jade. It's nice that the stamped image gives you the shadowing already, so you could just go with just one color, or you could just stamp the whole thing on a solid cardstock, and then you wouldn't need to color it in at all. So that's just giving a little bit of color into the shadows. And the other thing with blends, if you haven't used them before, well, you leave them for a bit and the colors do tend to change a bit. You know, they'll fade into each other. And if you don't like the way they look, then just put a different color on top. I've had some things where I've done lots of different colors. Like, see, I just swirled that, not quite how I liked it. So you can just keep coming in with different colors and different shades and make things look a bit different. So I don't really like how, see how I kind of smeared that part? So what you can do is come in with the bullet point, and if you kind of swirl it around, this is with the light one, you can swirl it around a bit to fade the other colors in. And the more layers you put on, the different shading you get. So I'm just coming in a bit more with the fade some of that dark in. Okay, so I will carry on coloring this off screen and show you the final result. So I've colored it using the light and the dark Just Jade stamping blends, and then I've done some light Misty Moonlight, and the body I've done with the dark Misty Moonlight. Now I thought it was looking a bit dark, so that's what I ended up coloring there. So to lighten it up, I am using the color lifter, which is the white pen, and so see how this side's slightly lighter. So with that one, again, it has two different tips, and you can simply come in over the colors that you had and use it just like your blends, but don't be heavy-handed. So what it's going to do is it's going to lift up some of the color that you had on there. And you probably can't see it at the moment, but when I pick it up and show you, you'll see that it's going to slowly lift it up. It's also good for getting rid of blemishes if you've accidentally got color somewhere else. Like, see how I've got a bit of green going over the line there? I can use the color lifter there, and it doesn't so much lift the color as help it fade or push it elsewhere onto the cardstock. So I'm just going over that gently, and the longer it sits, the more effect it has. So I've seen another spot I've gone out of the lines. So it's quite helpful to use as an eraser or to lighten things up. So I had gone out of the lines there, and so that's faded a bit, and over there. But now the whole butterfly itself has got a different look. So I've helped to fade some of that. I like the darker on the inside. I might just, when you use this, push the ink toward the direction where you want the color to fade, and that works quite well. So there's certain areas I want to keep the dark, and other areas where I want it to sort of fade in, so you can see different shading. And with these inks, you just need to leave them for a bit to dry. And if you find that you've taken too much color off, don't worry, because you can just get the other pen and add more color in. And so the color doesn't stick to the pen. So it might get slightly stained, but it doesn't stay on the pen. And so as you can see when I touch here, that's just wet. That's not actually color coming through. But now you can see that the colors have changed, and now I don't have true, these colors aren't true anymore because I've added the color lifter, so there's slightly different shades of color going on there. So you can play around a lot with the color lifter to give you different looks, etc. So I'm going to die cut this, and we'll finish putting the card together. Okay, so there's the die cut butterfly. And I went ahead and I used the detailed die that comes in the set and cut out a bit in black just to show you what it would look like. So you can do the detail separate, or so I could have that and give a bit more drama with the different layers, but I think that'll look too dark on this card. If you were to say die cut the butterfly in a solid color, then you could just put the black as your accent over the top. So if you imagine that was all just jade, then you can have the black and then the color peeking through. But I just wanted to show you how those detailed dies come out. They've got some, it looks really dramatic if you use foil. So that's for a project I'm going to do in the near future. And that was the largest butterfly die cut with some foil. So it's a really nice set to have. And if you weren't already aware of it, when you color with blends, it does bleed through. So you always want to color with blends something that's going to be placed down onto your card, so it's not bleeding through your card. So it has to be something that's going to stand out. So I'll cut that so we can now do our punching. So because I want to do it at an angle, I'm sliding this in at an angle, making sure I've got my right side up. And I found that if that corner there just touched the corner here, that gave me a good angle to punch at. But the other thing I want to make sure is when I am punching it, that I'm punching it so the butterfly is not too far over. So if I turn it over upside down and have a look, so that's where the slot's going to go. Now if I had the slot too far here, then the butterfly wing will be sticking out from the edge of the card, as you can see here. If I cut the slit there, the butterfly would stick out from the side of the card. So I want to push it as far in as I can, but at an angle, so I can have the angle I have on there, and then just holding the butterfly where the center is, I can see that the edge of the butterfly is not going to go over the edge of the card. So that's a good position to have it in. So, and the nice thing with the stamp sets with Stampin' Up is they have a flat top, so you can put it on the table and it can be cut this way. And the other reason for doing that is, again, if you have small hands, arthritis, etc., and can't pick it up and grip it, you can simply do that and then press, just simply press down with your palm and it pops out. Okay, so there's our angle for our butterfly to come up. Now, the next thing is to glue the front cardstock on. You might be thinking, why didn't I do that first before I cut the angle, before I punched it? The reason for that is because it makes it too thick and very difficult for the punch to go through. So when you glue this down, you're just going to want to glue on the four edges of the piece going down. So if you have double-sided tear and tape, just go on the edges. And then you want to just do around the edges here. You don't want glue everywhere because you don't want it to go through the slot. So that's sufficient. And you don't want to put glue on the edges here because you have a little bit of gap there. So you want this to go have edging there. So stick that all down, rub that in place. Okay, and now you're probably thinking, oh no, I've covered up the hole. Well, I have and I haven't, because you can still see it on the side. So now we just come in on the back side and you can see where the hole was. Just line it up again, right where the hole was. And punch through. So it's only going one layer. It's easy to go through. This piece you want to keep. You want to keep that piece because you're going to glue it back in place. That way you have a nice image on the background. If I didn't glue that in place and just stuck the butterfly down here, you'd be seeing a big green in the background, which isn't that nice. So you're going to glue that back in place. The easiest way to do that is, if you had a dramatic change in color, which I don't really, you want to glue it the same direction with the same shadowing. So like in this card here, see I've got lighter shadowing there and darker there. So you want to put it right back the way it came out with your card closed. So you've got your decorative side on the inside, top closed. Bit of glue, not all the way to the edges. You don't want it to seep out too much. Turn it over and put that right back into place. You can use your bone folder if you need to hold it. Pull it out, and that should be in the exact right spot for your butterfly. I'm just going to do my edges while I've got them. Okay, so now it just looks like a solid front. So for the butterfly, you just want to make sure you have his thick body. So you bend up the wings on either side of the body. So we've got his body sitting there. And you don't really need to do any other changes to him because he needs to come up straight or go out. Now, I highly recommend you use liquid glue for this next step because you need to be able to make sure you wiggle it in place. So pop a little bit of glue down on his body. holding his wings together. Put him in there. Now you don't want to center him because his top wings are higher than his bottom wings. So you just want to set him in there gently and then see if he pulls out. So you need to make sure you do it so the top wing's not too high, the bottom wing's not too low. So you just set him down there, determine where the best spot for him to come out. That looks about right. I might need to go up a little actually, so then you can slide it to the spot you need. And if you have a look, so see how I hold the wings and I can see where the bottom point is and the top point is, and then practice pulling it out. And if it comes out the way you want, then you can, once you're happy with that, just press it back into place. Okay, Tombow doesn't take very long to stick. It's a good glue. And then I can just pop him back. I think I actually need him to go up slightly. Is that better? That's better. That's why liquid glue is good to use, because you can slide them. Okay, and so now he's open and the wing doesn't go over the edge and the words are off the bottom. And then you can just simply either push the wings or just pull it open. You've got the words there and plenty of room to write. So that's the card there. I always like to add a bit of bling to my cards. So this one here, which will be, I believe it's retiring as well, the blue adhesive back gems. I'm thinking I might go with these other colors here. This one I went with the light blue, which I think was the Seaside Spray, which is a retiring color. And then this one I'm going to go with the darker colors. So I'm just going to take, oh no, I want the dark ones, so I'll just take the dark one with my scissors, pop it on the big circle. That goes much better with this butterfly. I made the colors darker than my original. And pop that on there. And then a couple small ones to give it some bling. Yep. And then you can just have it like that. You could add a bit more bling if you want, more color if you'd like. You just fold that up. And there you have it. So there you have a card for Ladies First from the Global Monthly Video Hop. So make sure you click on some of the links shown in the description below to see some other lovely Ladies First projects made by demonstrators around the world. I will be putting all these product codes in the description as well, so you'll see, so if you want to order the Strong and Beautiful, which will be retiring, as well as the Curvy Dies, which will retire, and the Everyday Label Punch. But the Butterfly Dies, Brilliant Wings Dies is what they're called, as well as the Butterfly Brilliance. Those will be around for another year because they start with the May 4th catalog. However, you can pre-order these now. So ask your demonstrator if you want to order any of these items. If you do not have a demonstrator and you live in New Zealand, I'd love to be yours. So you can just click on the links to my shop or to contact me directly. If you live outside New Zealand and don't have a demonstrator, you can go to stampinup.com and click on Locate a Demonstrator to find somebody near you. So I hope you've enjoyed that Ladies First project for the Global Monthly Video Hop. Thanks for watching, and that's my website there, and I will be putting some more details on my blog, so if you'd like some more details on this or other projects, you can go to papercraftaddiction.blogspot.co.nz. Thanks so much. Have a good day. Bye.